Okay, I think we're ready to get started, but I'll wait just a second. Are we live? We are live. Okay. Well, good morning and welcome to, this is our City Council workshop, which is a series of workshops we're doing on Wednesday mornings with department heads having the opportunity to provide updates both to City Council and to the public. This morning, as we get ready to go, we'll do roll call in just a second, but we have added two business items on this morning that needed to be covered. So we're going to do those first, but we'll start with roll call.
Rodriguez.
Here.
Jangula. Bills.
Here.
Reynolds. Haverfield.
Here.
Griffin.
Here.
4 present, 2 absent.
Okay, we are going to start with an action item, and the first one on the agenda is awarding a bid and authorizing the mayor to sign the contract with Knife River Corporation for the Ustick Road widening, Phyllis Canal and Oahe Storm project in the amount of $19,974,943.77. What happened on Monday night, you approved this item on Monday night, but there was an error in the action item dollar amount. It differed from the actual, the backup, and it was 100,000 short. So we are needing to we did approve it, but the actual action item number was off.
Mayor, I move to approve. Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez.
Here. Yes. Yes.
Bills.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
Griffin.
Yes.
Could you go to that mic?
Motion carries.
Okay. Our second item, I'll read the action item and then we'll move from there, but this is to approve the purchase of a PVC liner in the amount of $44,218.80 and a new pump and motor in the amount of $63,950.09 from Treasure Valley Drilling, and the purchase of a variable frequency drive from AME Electric in the amount of $57,000 for well 9. And thank you for sharing with us what we're doing.
Sure. John Spencer, Engineering Manager, Water and Irrigation. Mayor, council members, we had a well 9 went down. I was pumping sand in late November, so we've had to do some extensive investigation on exactly what the cause of that was. It was determined that there was a hole in the casing. So what you have before you is the fix, so we can get that well 9 back into production. The reason we're coming to you today, we've had some other challenges with other wells in our main zone. So we've had well 14 was programmed to be part of our pump maintenance. So that pump was pulled, which we expected. What we didn't expect is well 4 went down. We had a chlorine analyzer has the tubes. One of the tubes broke, sprayed onto the VFD in that pump station, so that pump station went down. And then we just recently found that there is a issue with the generator at well 20. The core of the radiator is leaking, so if we have no electricity, well 20 would be down. So that means in the main zone we would have 4 pump stations down, which moving into the summer months is a significant challenge and probably would result in services being diminished. So we're asking for this to be approved so we can move forward with the rehabilitation of well 9.
Are these irrigation wells or domestic?
This is a domestic well.
Domestic
yes.
well, okay.
So, Mayor?
Yes.
So the request is for $165,000?
That is correct.
Okay. It's for all 3 of those items then, all well locations.
Mayor, I don't know if it was mentioned. Can you tell me the funding source and how that project, I know it's an emergency, so where is that money coming from?
We will have to do a budget amendment for this. Our pump maintenance budget item, this along with what we've already spent would exceed the budgeted amount.
And it'll come from the fund,
Yes,
From the water fund?
the fund balance,
Yeah,
yes.
fund.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Make a motion to approve the purchase as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Bills,
Yes.
Haverfield,
Yes.
Griffin.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Okay, thank you. All righty, now it's time to hear from the police department. We look forward to your presentation today. So we have two today, police and animal control, and I'm sure you guys will do both. And thank you.
Yes. All right. So, thank you, Mayor, Council. So, this is a good opportunity to go through and let you know where we're looking at in FY26. But we'll start by covering our mission, what the goals are that we've had for FY25 and our progress toward those. And then we'll get into staffing, capital, and operations looking forward into FY26. So some of this might be a little bit of a review from last year because our mission statement stays steady. It's the same. And I've underlined our core values, which are built into our mission statement, and we incorporate those into every aspect of our daily operations and evaluations of staff. This gives you a total number of officers and total number of staff within the police department. We're currently at 223 people who work for the city at the police department. The next couple slides, I'll go through, kind of give a breakdown of where those employees are divvied out to. So our traffic team has 7 people. Patrol's our largest division within the police department. I would like to say you see 80 people in patrol, but we never do because we constantly have people in training, either in FTO on the street with an officer or in the academy. So typically on patrol, we're hovering around 70 at any one time as far as staffing goes for that division.
Do
And
you
we'll get
mind, Eric, I'm going to ask you to go back. Because there may be someone listening that isn't looking, would you go ahead and read those?
Absolutely.
Because there could be someone that's listening and is not seeing this slide as you're
Okay.
talking through.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that, Mayor.
Thank
These
you.
are all full-time employees?
There are 2 positions currently within the police department that are part-time, actually 3. So I have 1 in training. There is a call taker position that's part-time, and there is a forensic tech position that's part-time.
So of all the 223, it's just those that are part-time?
Correct. Yeah. Thank you. So we have 3 individuals assigned to the Real-Time Crime Center. We have 5 analysts at the department. We have 16 dispatchers. 2 of those are supervisors and 1 manager. And we'll talk a little bit more at length about dispatch a little later on. I covered the 80 for patrol, and then 3 digital forensic investigators. One of those positions is we're getting funding through ICAC, through a partnership with them. So that has helped us expand that division a little bit. We have 15 school resource officers, which we've added a few to this year, and we'll talk a little bit about that. We have 6 gang set officers. That was another position, a set corporal that was added this year. 5 staff in training, one of those being a part-time position. 2 animal control officers, which I'm happy to say are full this year. We spent a lot of time trying to get one of those positions filled, finding the right candidate. We have 5 community service officers and 3 victim witness coordinators. And then the last slide on staff breakdown, 10 persons crimes investigators, 6 property crimes investigators, 8 narcotics officers, 7 evidence staff, and 15 police records staff. And then I don't want to neglect the administrative support staff sitting back over here. Kelly and Karina and Trish. And
Eric, we have
Jen.
it.
So, what's that?
And we have a quick question
Just a
here.
quick question.
Yes, sir.
We approved a contract employee on Monday night. Do you have other contract employees as well?
That is the only contract employee.
Okay, just the one.
Yeah. So along with our mission, we have used CompStat since, I believe, 2017. Chief, I think, took the position as chief in 2016, and so we rolled CompStat forward shortly after that, and we have been implementing that ever since. It's gone through some evolutions, and it is it's a constantly evolving thing, because we use it to identify where we need to deploy resources within the city. And we have meetings every other month with all of the supervisors and the chief to go over what our crime stats look like, where we're seeing different crime trends, and focusing on the alignment of staff and making sure we're doing the best we can with that. As you have seen, if you've come by the police department, and obviously I think even just this week, you have seen technology coming forward to council as we implement it. Technology is a big part of our agency. It's a big part of policing, honestly, to try and keep up with crime, because there is more and more technology out in our community. That requires that we get very familiar with it and adapt with it. And so we are always looking at what technology advancements can help with efficiency and how we operate, and then what is needed so that we can chase cyber criminals as well. So, Mayor, you posed a few questions to us, kind of covered the mission statement already, so I'll cover the next 4 here. What is our customer? So our customer is the citizens of Nampa, individuals visiting or passing through our city. That's residents, that's commuters, that's people we have contact with through our daily operations. And what do they value? So I looked at the city survey to find answers to these questions. There's a pretty strong feeling that the city is a safe environment, that police services score pretty highly. One of the areas of concern expressed in that survey was the perception of safety downtown in the evenings. And we'll talk a little bit about what we've done to address that. The third question here is, what are our results? In looking at these reports produced by our crime analysis unit, I think you'll see pretty positive results here. So the blue line represents Nampa, the green line represents Idaho in general, and the brown line, the national average. So from 2020 to 2023, you'll see our trending crime in Nampa trending down from closer to where it was at the national average to more in alignment with the Idaho crime rate. And I would venture to say in 24, 25, we're below that. That top chart is going to show you our violent crime rate as well, which is below all of those averages. So I think we're doing pretty good when it comes to managing the crime rate in Nampa, and we've been pretty successful with that. Yes.
Just a quick question, as far as back to the slide on the mayor's questions, what is our customer?
Yeah.
Are we talking about just Nampa, within the Nampa boundary, city limits, or impact areas, or county? As far as dispatch, do you dispatch beyond the Nampa city line very often, as far as for support, or?
So that's a great question, Councilman Haverfield. So we tend to look at our customer as the taxpayers in Nampa. That's who funds us. That's who we focus on primarily. Our job takes us in different places, but it's typically at the service of our customers here in Nampa. So we might be a part of task forces throughout the valley, but it has a tie back and a connection contribution to our community. When it comes to dispatch, as you specifically asked, we dispatch for Nampa Police and Nampa Fire, so that would include the Nampa Fire District.
Okay.
And Lieutenant Peck might help me out with this a little bit. I believe the calls generally that come in are from within the city of Nampa, but do you have anything to add to that, Lieutenant? Lieutenant Peck is our lieutenant over dispatch, so.
Mayor, Councilman Haverfield, we do receive calls from outside the city Typically, if it's a medical or fire, we will retain that call. But if it's for police services, we will transfer that over to Canyon County. But we do receive some from outside the city.
So it would be safe to say that you'd be in a support role if you go outside the city limits. Wouldn't be the primary function.
Fire would be,
would be?
correct. But for instance, this morning, our law was requested by Canyon County to go out into the county to assist them. So that would be support function at that point.
Follow up, Mayor. Is there any way to distinguish our enclave zones within the city?
Yes. However, again, we will get a call, any of the enclaves in the city, those calls typically come into our dispatch center just because of the way that, the way current 911 calls are routed based off of cell tower, they will come into our dispatch center. If it's a law call, we will send that over to Canyon County, but if it's a fire or EMS, we will retain it and take the call to dispatch those services.
Those are the only exceptions. We're not showing up to enclave zones for anything other than an actual emergency?
Typically speaking, no.
Okay.
Now, that being said, if Canyon receives the call in an enclave, we do respond, because sometimes we are faster to respond than county. So we will respond to assist county and get the scene stabilized until Canyon County can get officers there.
One of the reasons I asked this question, Mayor, and for council, I think it's good and important that we maintain public safety, so I appreciate that you're responding to emergency calls. Frankly, any emergency call, we need to work as partners with our county and with other municipalities. However, I think it's very difficult for individuals holding out and staying in enclave zones, which is their right and their desire, that we are now expressing to them, we are not receiving funds from you to be able to be the customer service entity that we want to be on non-emergent calls, and letting the county know, hey, maybe this should be the message that we're sharing is we have so many calls, and I don't know how many, and I would appreciate that number.
So that's going to be a hard number for us to gather. Again, if it's a non-emergency call, we are not responding.
At all.
Correct. Canyon would have to request us to come and assist them.
And do they often?
Not a non-emergency.
Thank you. Okay.
Thanks, LT.
Follow-up question. From a policing point of view, is there any reason to push towards annexing those enclaved areas?
Yes. There's multitude of reasons for that, but the biggest thing is ease for the officers, because we're driving along the road, we see something, or we are closer. Public safety wise, we will be faster to respond to enclave properties, typically speaking, than Canyon County will. So for the safety of the citizen, we would be the faster response. But then the other part comes into, for the officers on the street, rather than having to have their map up and looking and seeing, is this in the city or is this in the county? Frequently we will get a situation that'll happen. Crashes are a good example that it may be just off the roadway when it happened. And so our officers are trying to decipher, is this a city crash or is it a county crash? Sometimes there is conflict between the agencies because one agency is saying this is city, one saying it's county, and so then there would be conflict. So yes, we would love to reduce the enclaves. It makes our response easier for our dispatchers, for our officers, and everybody involved.
Another follow-up then, Mayor. When we receive a situation like you said, the example of an accident, and it's clearly from an enclave area, enclave individual, they were backing out of their street, got hit or did something egregious, do we bill or how are we collecting from Canyon County for our officers' time?
We don't.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And the last of your questions, Mayor, is our plan effective? Here's just a couple more charts that kind of show or illustrate how the crime trend's been going for Nampa Police Department. And I think we've been sharing these with the community here recently. So I pulled these from the report the analysts had provided to you, Mayor. So you can see across the state on that bottom chart showing our Group A crimes that we're trending down compared to other cities around Idaho. And here in the Treasure Valley, we're right in alignment with the other cities. So we're doing a pretty good job, I would say, and it indicates from where we started to where we are today that our effort, particularly utilizing CompStat, is paying off. So we'll talk a little bit about Group A crimes because that was one of our FY25 goals. You'll see that Group A crimes are down this year, 17.3%. That's a significant drop. For those of you who like to geek out on all of the different Group A crimes, I've got a slide for you here, a couple down the road. But that's a pretty significant drop. You know, our goal is to keep it below 55 Group A crimes per 1,000. We're well below that this year. This is the slide that shows you what the different Group A crime categories are. These are a grouping of crimes that we report to the state, but they're just significant crimes that are categorized together from crimes against society, crimes against property, and crimes against persons.
Can you focus on human trafficking being up 200%?
Yes, so we are working a number of investigations in that regard, and those are focused investigations. The position that got brought before council this past week was related to that, so that's an emphasis and a focus for us.
The thing interesting about these numbers, though, is looking like there were 2 in 20. We did a big operation in 21. That's why there were 20. And then was that in 21, 22, that's when we did our massage parlors and that whole thing, I think is why that was so high. So in 24, there were 6. So you can look at a number, 200% sounds huge, but it's interesting, there's 6 in 24.
So
Yeah.
why would it be up 200% if it was a drop in numbers from 2023 to
That's a good point.
2024?
That's a good point.
So I think what they're looking at, and that's a great question. I don't know that I can fully explain that. I would have to ask the analyst.
Okay.
But I think what they're looking at is just the change or variation. But I'm taking a stab at that question, so I would have to look at that.
Well, again, it just popped on. When I was looking at that, it just popped off, and I thought, what are we talking about here? I mean, if there's that kind of an increase in Nampa, there needs to be a sensitivity really highly expressed. And then up at 440% increase is embezzlement and, you know, those type of things. But human trafficking is something that really needs to have our attention.
I think part of it comes down to, in 2023, the legislature actually tightened the human trafficking laws. It was misdemeanors, and at the end of the 2023 session, they really tightened human trafficking, made a lot of those felonies a lot easier to investigate because, you know, prostitution, massage parlors were starting to get out of control, quite frankly. And Nampa Police, specifically Lieutenant Jason Kimball, took the lead on that and worked with Representative Skog and made a really good law for Idaho for human trafficking.
That's what I was going to ask. As far as on the prosecution side, are we going to have meat in that because of that new law and support it from our Canyon County prosecutors?
Are we going to have what?
Support as far as on the prosecution side.
Yes, specifically some of the cases we're working right now, we're working with the United States Attorney's Office and Canyon County. I would say they have at least a biweekly meeting on our cases and stuff with the prosecutors just to make sure that, since it's a new law to all of us, but I can tell you we're leading the state right now in being aggressive towards human trafficking by far.
Good.
Follow up, Mayor.
I just got one more question. Gang, I've heard someone say recently that we do have a lot of gang activity, and that was actually expressed by one of our state representatives. I wasn't aware of that. I thought we were pretty much on top of that. Do we have an issue with gang activity increasing?
So I would tell you our stats on that are probably down. related to gang-related crimes, because I haven't noticed a trend upward with those. But that's what our SET team focuses on. And I would tell you, without them, that trend would go the opposite direction. So they stay busy. They do a variety of other things as well. It's not just gang-focused activity, but there is still a presence.
But to hear in a public forum one of our state representatives say that we have a big gang issue in Nampa caught me off guard, because I've heard the opposite of that we are on top of it. But
Yeah,
for him to say it.
I would
really-
say from the stats I've seen, those crimes are generally trending down, not up.
Okay.
However, that's why we have the SET team. We implemented that about 2 years ago because the gang crime was starting to rise slightly. The gangs are still here, of course, but now that we have a 6-person team that can focus on them, when they do start to rise, we knock them back down again. Again, a lot of that is through the federal prosecutors working with the Violent Crimes Task Force, the Metro, the FBI, because a lot of those are federal crimes that they commit, and that's a great thing to arrest somebody for that we don't want in our community, because we don't have a federal prison in Idaho, so a lot of them get shipped out to, Kentucky or Louisiana, and we get them out of our area. And that's, one of the concerns this year with our funding. We would have to start looking at some of our traffic teams or our SET teams, because we have to have people on patrol to respond to, the crimes that are happening right now, and those are basically the 2 areas that we could pull extra bodies from. Extra bodies isn't the right word, but bodies from.
And Councilman Haverfield, I will just, back to your question about the 200%, what the analysts did here as I'm looking at this report is did a comparison of 24 to 2020. So you'll see 6 human trafficking cases in 24 and 2 in 2020. That's a 200% increase from that date. So it shows the trend of cases between 24 and 20, but the values are a comparison directly to that year.
Better to look at the numbers under the 2024 line instead of the change, is what I'm hearing.
Could you go back and show the comparison slide that we did for the state of Idaho, right in here? So one of the things, the reason I asked for this type of analysis is to combat the comment that we had a legislator say. That was an ill-informed comment and very unfortunate. Those kinds of things make me mad, because if you look at our stats, we have come down, and you look at where we are in the state of Idaho, and then there's another one that shows where we are nationally. And I don't think you have that one up, the national one, and I'll send this to you, but I appreciate the work it took to actually get this done, but it's very telling. So this is the one that shows where Idaho is in comparison, where Nampa is compared to Idaho, compared to the nation. And then our property crimes, you see that we went down considerably in our property crimes, which was awesome. And then if you go back to the next slide to see where we are in comparison to the state, years ago, back in 2020 and years ago, we did have more crime. But we're not there today, and we've done a really good job. The fact that since 2018, we've come down 28% in our Group A crimes, which is incredible. One of the things that I'm working on and speaking to realtors and others is to get them to share these stats with them so that we can get away from the old rhetoric. That is old, it is not current. And I find it very unfortunate somebody would say that publicly, because they just don't know the stats.
Well, and that's what caught my attention is my understanding, because I've been watching the CompStat stuff for the last 6 to 8, however long it's been, and been very pleased with the results. The ability to focus on hot areas has been a part of that. So when I heard that, it kind of caught me off guard, and even by name, listing out a couple of the different gangs that are out there, and I didn't know about them. It made me kind of a little concerned. But again, if there's people in our society that believe, or in our community that believe that there is a higher gang activity, it might be because of exposure. I'm not sure, but I haven't seen it. And the tagging, the stuff back when my kids were in high school even, there was more of an obvious nature out there of the stuff that was going on. So I haven't seen that in years.
I think it's also important to note, too, with our analysts that we've had for the last couple of years, our stats, our numbers don't lie. We report accurately. I'm not saying these other cities don't. We all report to the same pool, obviously, but everybody knows you can, manipulate stats. If I wanted to change them when I speak to you guys, I could change them however, but our baseline always stays the same, and I'm not sure about these other cities if they do. As far as graffiti, we try to, once graffiti is reported to us, we try to cover that within 24 to 36 hours, under the broken windows theory of policing, because if you leave it there, obviously more graffiti is going to come. If we just wipe it off and then move on, and then it comes tomorrow, we wipe it off the next day or get it, cleaned up.
I'd just say that slide that had the percentage of difference, you might want to eliminate that last row or column, because it's a little, someone could look at that and say, wow, human trafficking's up 200%, and not see anything else, and not understand why it's compared against 2020 and not 2023.
Well, and we don't eliminate the columns, Mr. Hatfield, just to be transparent fully. But I do need to do a really good job of explaining it, because low numbers of crime, any variation in a low number of crime can look like a huge impact. Homicides, for example, are always a low number, but year to year it can look like big swings if all you look at is the percentage. So we do always have to look at the numbers of those crimes in relation to that.
So when you look at 2021, then the drop to 2022, and then the drop to 23, and then the drop to 24, that's a baseline that's dropping. It's not up 200% versus something 4 or 5 years ago. That's the only thing I was.
So real quickly, Councilman Griffin, did you have a, no?
I think this issue's been harped on
Okay, thank you.
enough.
Okay, so we're going to move on so we can get through the rest.
Mayor,
Thank you.
I have a question.
I'm sorry, Councilman Rodriguez, I apologize.
So I want to clarify something, because I think we're putting a bunch of apples in a basket. There should be a few oranges in there. When we say gang violence or gang activity, it just doesn't involve juveniles. It involves seniors, the older guys. It involves drugs. It involves the violent crime that you see here. And when those gang members from 60 years old down to 15, those are different. So I want to be very careful to say who we specify gangs are. There are some that we haven't even mentioned, and that is the cartels, if there are any here, but they're associated to the drug part of it. And so we don't even mention those. So when you talk about gangs, it's a whole picture here that we're missing. And that's why it's so important that these numbers compared to the amount of gang officers that we have, because that's what the precaution, that's what's prevention. So if I look at these numbers, the 200%, that's just not a number that we're not even touching the brim of the hat here, because those are only reported. The ones that are not reported that we're working on would far exceed those numbers. That's why it's important to bring more officers in to handle those cases, to bring the numbers down. So I just wanted to clarify the gang issue. There's much more involved than just the word gang. Yeah.
Thank you, Councilman Rodriguez. All right, so we'll move on. I know I have a number of slides to get through here. So one of our other goals this year is hiring a mental health coordinator. That was a position that was allocated for us by council in FY25. We're still working toward that goal. We had a candidate, unfortunately didn't get through the background process, so we're in the process now of taking applications for that again, and that should be closing here in the next week or two. So hopefully we'll get that accomplished here pretty soon. And I know Councilman Griffin, you might have a question on open positions. This would be one, and it has been open since it was allocated in October. So
Thank you for the explanation.
I'll cover a couple others of those as well. Our goal on DNA testing is to get our criminalists through a couple of different classes. This would allow Christine to be able to go to the state lab. We don't have DNA equipment. Our lab is not set up for that type of testing, but she does have the requisite degrees minus a couple of courses. So our goal was to get her trained up to be able to conduct some testing at the state facility. That would help us with our turnaround time on those, and I'll hit that here in just a couple of minutes as well. Adding traffic cameras to a few intersections this year. Through the Burn Jag grant, we were able to acquire that equipment. Lieutenant Peck has informed me that is being installed in the next couple of weeks and should be up and going here within a month. So we are almost completed with that goal. I love this picture of Officer Watt. He's one of our traffic officers. And I would inform you that our directive to our traffic team this past year has been to issue more citations to have an impact on crashes. If you're getting pulled over by a motor officer for a moving violation, you're likely to get a citation because we know that research shows that's what impacts people's driving. So that's why you see the dramatic increase there. It was deliberate and intentional, and it remains our focus today. And Officer Watt, if he had asked if he had permission to write me if he pulls me over, of course he does. But I hope I obey the law. So another goal, while overall Group A crimes are down, fraud cases have been going up. This chart looks like that's a dramatic increase. I think we can probably look at a single case that had a pretty big impact on that stat. But cryptocurrency is one of those new things for law enforcement that we're now finding ourselves in the realm of trying to recover lost funds for people. So there's a little bit of software that we're looking to add that's increasing our budget a little bit this year, along with a few other things that are kind of in that same genre of technology and trying to keep up with it. Sextortion, extortion, blackmail, those types of things have been a focus for particularly our school resource officers. But we've been working to educate our officers across the division on these types of cases, particularly as teens can be a vulnerable population for that. We work with ICAC. ICAC has been doing a lot of publication on that. So just to kind of highlight a couple of areas that we've been trying to focus activities on. Our goal of achieving a weighted city survey satisfaction score of 3.85, kind of a funny number because 3.75 is 75% if you like round numbers. So we increased that to 3.85 this year and just missed that mark. But we're still trending over that 75% average. I think we came in at 3.67 or something like that. So. At 76.6% instead of 77. So we're doing, I think, a pretty good job in terms of, especially as police departments go, we're not always the most popular entity in the public, but we work hard to achieve that. From that city survey also, what the citizens have said is that priorities for spending, police is at the top, along with fire, EMS, and that's across each of the districts. So I pulled this chart straight from that city survey just to give you that illustration as well. This shows you what some of the community outreach efforts are. You're probably familiar with a lot of these. But like they say, trust is like water, right? You earn it in droplets and lose it in buckets. So all these events are ways that we earn that trust and being out there connecting with our community. Our school resource officers, we have 15 school resource officers who've been facilitating the youth academy. They've had 109 different drug incidents during the past year, so they are busy in the schools. Vapes are a common thing. I showed some pictures here at our last CompStat meeting. The school resource officers were talking about some of the weapons offenses and things that they're dealing with in the schools and threats in the schools. So they're doing a wonderful job keeping our schools safe. I would say that the community at large largely doesn't know about many of these types of incidents that they deal with because we're able to isolate them and deal with those. And those pictures there look like, when I first saw those look like real guns. But I was told they are not. Those are airsofts or other types of firearms, but they sure look real. But that's what they have taken off of students. So talking about new positions that we received in FY25, just to kind of give you a reminder of what was allocated for us this past year. We were allocated an officer and a mental health coordinator to develop a team to work toward mental health. Mid-year, one SRO and one lieutenant were partially funded, so Lieutenant Calderon will be starting in that assignment here this month, April 20th, and we have a new SRO that we have hired into this academy. It's kind of a backfill. Officer Burns is going to be filling that position later this year, and also this year we added a digital forensic investigator and a set gain corporal, which we had mentioned, and 2 other SROs. So the Valley View SRO was a mid-year we brought to council because of some grant funding that Valley View approached us with and asked us to be a partner with them, and so council approved that. And then 2 for the Nampa School District. So one which started at the beginning of the school year, and then another that is going to be starting next school year, but the funding kicked in here this month.
Just a quick question. Do you provide SROs to the charter schools?
So the SROs are, no, we do not.
Okay, that's a good enough answer. And then the schools that the Nampa School District decided to close down, Greenhurst, Snake River Elementary, West Junior High, so you don't provide SROs to those locations now?
There are some activities that occur at those schools, and since they are Nampa School District activities, we will cover those types of things.
With the SRO officers or just regular?
With the
Okay.
school resource officers. Yeah.
Okay. I was just wondering what happens, because they are still active, but obviously it isn't under the Nampa School District. If it's, I don't know if Gateways is that or not, but anyway, just thought I'd ask the question.
Yeah.
Has the charter school inquired on having an SRO and they're just not willing to fund, or where are we at with that issue?
Do you know the answer to that question?
There has been some discussions over the last few years, and it does usually come down to funding. So we will respond if they have an issue or they need an officer. Right, correct. But we do not have an actual SRO assigned to the school like we do with those that we have contracts with.
This chart is our overall organizational chart, and I threw a few different colors on here, partially to make it interesting, but they have a purpose. So the beige areas are the areas within the department where the staffing for FY25 has landed. The green areas are priorities for FY26. So patrol and dispatch are our main priorities when it comes to staffing here immediately.
Mayor, if it's possible to get a regular size printout of that
Yes.
slide, yeah, it'd be helpful. I'd appreciate it.
I will get that to you. Thank you, Councilman Bills.
We'll actually get one put in your book for you, besides probably emailing it. So we'll do both for everyone. That way, everybody's got it.
If we can, that way, some of the slides, it's easy to see here and make notes. That particular one would be one to be able to refer back to when we get into the numbers side of things and the actual budget sessions. So,
Councilman Bills, I can get you a copy of that, and you will like that incorporated into the budget book?
Well, it'll be in this book. So what we need to do is print it. Kim will print it, 3-hole punch it, and she'll have it for you for your book. Mhm.
that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
So as we talk about staffing needs, I'm going to hit on dispatch first here. And so I've had conversation, obviously, through the building of the budget process with the finance team, with Mr. Racine, on what funding, if council were to take the allotted 3%, what that would, what that kind of projections look like in terms of what we can afford. So our conversations this week pretty much indicate that the funding available for PD would be limited to about 5 positions. I will start with saying that I don't think that will keep up with what we see in the PAM model or even in a more conservative model of over time of staffing needs. But I'll talk to you about if we had 5 positions, what those priorities would be. And 2 supervisors in dispatch would be 2 of those positions that I would strongly recommend authorizing. And I do have a org chart for that. The red squares show if we had 4 dispatch positions where I would put those. We have 2 dispatch supervisors that cover 4 teams, and ideally we would have a supervisor on each of those shifts so that when emergent things occur, there's a supervisor there to deal with it and also to identify issues that are coming up so that nothing gets missed. We recently added 1 supervisor because for a long time we only had 1, and that span of control just simply wasn't working. But even with 2, we're realizing this is more than they are up to the task for, and they are great supervisors. So those are 2 priority needs.
Mayor,
Yeah.
excuse
I
me,
think we
Eric.
have a couple questions, so
Yes,
we'll go.
thank you.
both of these.
Eric, how many dispatchers work per shift, and what does the PAN results show that should be working per shift?
So Councilman Rodriguez, the PAM, the policing allocation model, addresses patrol and traffic. It doesn't address
doesn't
anything
address
else.
dispatch.
So I can't look to that for a recommendation. There are 4 people on each shift if they're fully staffed. If somebody is off, we will operate with 3. 3 can be difficult at times because everybody gets a lunch generally, and when they're gone, then you have 2 dispatchers in there. The way they assign their staff is that one works the fire radio and dispatches fire and dispatches medics. The other dispatcher will work the law enforcement radio and dispatch police personnel. And then the other dispatcher, when there's 3, will handle the phone calls, 911 calls. During a busy incident, they might all be handling calls and trying to monitor radios. When somebody has gone at lunch and there's 2 people monitoring, then one is picking up double duties on some of those things. And so you're kind of just hoping nothing significant pops off during that period of time. So that's kind of the current climate that dispatch operates with on a normal basis.
And so how many police officers are working per shift in comparison to dispatchers?
Councilman Rodriguez, you can have, like, during the afternoon, which is when we typically are the most highly staffed on a weekday, you might have 70 officers that are working with all your school resource officers, with your patrol, a couple of shifts on at a time, with all investigators working. It can exceed that, but it's a pretty large number of personnel that are working.
Okay. I just want to show the comparison of dispatches with the officers out on the street. And one point is, when the dispatcher or when the officer calls on his radio, there's immediate response by the dispatch. If that is less, do officers have to wait for dispatcher to get free to answer them?
Sometimes. I guess the answer to the question is no, there's not enough dispatchers up there.
Exactly, that's what I'm getting
The
at.
answer for, I believe there was 126,000 incoming business calls to dispatch center last year, around, I think it was around 27,000 911 calls. All those officers that are checking out at schools or on suspicious people or, calls for service, proactive work coming in. 13,000 calls for Nampa Fire Department that we have to monitor that are coming in throughout the year, plus just other stuff that's going on in there. And well, Susie's here, but I would guess there's two dispatchers working right now?
I've got 3 on right.
Three right now, but that's, for the whole city with everything coming on. So, those supervisors would be our priority right now because they can fill the gaps. If somebody's sick today, we spend a lot of money in overtime in dispatch just because of the scheduling. Somebody calls in sick, we have to man that center. Again, for like Nampa Fire, there has to be somebody dedicated for the fire and the medics. I would encourage you to come up and sit in the dispatch center for 2 or 3 hours just to kind of see, and it can be really any time of the day. That's.
Well, that was my point, Chief, so thank you for that.
And if I can add to the chief's, and I'll get back to you, Councilman.
And Councilman Bills is
Griffin.
actually waiting. He's next, and then we'll come down.
Okay, I just want to add to what the chief said with regard to overtime. So we've been looking at our overtime, trying to have a impact on that and reduce that. This is one area of the department that I would need 8 staff in order to impact that, because we have day shifts and night shifts, but I don't have a swing shifts. So they have built-in overtime at 8 hours per paycheck. So every 2 weeks, all 16 of those dispatchers get 8 hours of overtime without working any unscheduled shift. So sometimes when they have to cover for somebody that's a couple people who are gone, or somebody's on maternity leave, or whatever the situation, then we have to bring them in for additional overtime on top of that. So that amounts to over 3,300 hours of built-in overtime to dispatch, and it would take 8 people so that I could create 2 swing shifts and reduce the hours and get them down to normal. So that's a big lift to reduce that overtime, but that's the reality of staffing there.
Okay, Councilman Bills?
Okay, so if we were able to work out a reimbursement from Fire District, those funds would help fund additional staffing?
Yes, we pulled some preliminary numbers, and it would roughly equate to about $450,000 for the Nampa Fire District's half of it, which would cover 4 dispatchers, line dispatchers, but we would still need the supervisors. We would still be asking for that. I think dispatch is really our priority. I mean, everybody wants the person in the uniform to be showing up, but if we don't have people to answer the phone calls and stuff, certainly. So yeah, I mean, that would actually help us a ton. And like I said, I believe is that the right numbers, Lieutenant Peck? We have the numbers for that, but yeah, it'd be roughly four full-time positions for the fire department. Granted, they're not going to be doing 100% of their time on fire, and they would do other things, but there has to be somebody there to answer the phone, or the medical call or whatever when it's coming in.
Well, there's a certain base time
Right.
that's there regardless.
Right. This seat has to be
What
filled.
entity, you got to staff it whether the calls are coming or not coming.
Correct.
And so it can't be just based on a call per day.
Right.
But it's one of the issues that we got to deal with to help this situation and get more people on.
Right. Absolutely.
Councilman Griffin?
I just would, if you could email us that information as well when we start having these negotiations regarding those numbers, it'd be nice to lay it all out on the table for them. And following up with the numbers, when are our peak times that we're having dispatchers receiving calls?
So the peak times are in the afternoons, evenings, starts mid-morning and starts to pick up. But our peak calls for service generally are in the evening hours, and then it starts to trail off after midnight, after 11.
Are there any other questions on this? We'll have a discussion on this after bid. Thank you.
So as far as patrol staffing needs, which was the other area that is our priority for staffing, and this is where the policing allocation model does give us some directive. So going back to what Amy had provided to council in her presentation a couple months ago, if you can recall that, that policing allocation model said that we need 12 officers today, and between now and 2029, another 15 officers, which is a pretty significant lift. I broke this down a couple of different ways because we have 8 patrol teams. So in order to add an officer to each of those, that would take 8 officers. Again, if we are only able to get 5 positions with 2 supervisors, the rest of those positions would be dedicated to patrol, or any other positions would be dedicated there to try and get those patrol teams to a better level of staffing and be able to address some of those needs identified in that policing allocation model. We had 7 officers that just started the academy here this week. When I said 5 new officers, that's an error there. There's 3 that are in training on patrol. 2 of those were laterals, and so they are out of their training now and out filling positions. And then we have 2 open positions currently, and those, Councilman Griffin, have only been open for about a month. So we tend to have hiring cycles, a couple throughout the year because of academies. So we run 2 academies, and so our hiring cycles kind of reflect that.
Well, and I think, are those 2 did we have a couple of officers leave?
Yes, we have 1 that's leaving here very soon and another anticipated in June. And
Officer Whistler.
oh, yes.
We're
Yeah.
talking about 5 open positions, not 2, or that's 2 including those positions?
2 and then 1 a little bit further on
3.
in
Thank you.
June.
Just to remind you on the PAM model, that's just for patrol. That's not for your gangs or your gang unit or your traffic unit. That's just the patrol division. So, I mean, the numbers are high already, but I mean, if we wanted to grow any of those units or detectives or Family Justice Center detectives or any of that, that's obviously more.
Councilman Haverfield?
So the PAM open positions that we have, are they funded at this point?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. But in addition, what we're talking about with the PAM model, those are in addition to the 3 funded positions?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So I put this chart together for impact fee discussions, but wanted to relate it here as well. So I'm going to draw your attention to the highlighted areas here. So the top part is basically a policing allocation model and what that staffing would look like if we were try and accomplish that over the next 10 years. That line for sworn staff needs with PAM in parentheses, that's the number of officers basically that PAM recommends over the next 10 years. And that's projected out because 12, if we were to use PAM and hire 12 in 2026, and then get the next 15 between then and 2029, that puts us at a 1.33 officers to population ratio. And then just trying to kind of project that out till 2035, it shows essentially the number of staff that you could estimate needing to hire to maintain that ratio over that period of time. The line that says other sworn staff needs, that's to try and keep the ratio of patrol and traffic officers to the ratio of detectives, officers, and other assignments. So that's what those numbers represent.
So just to emphasize, for all needs, we need 24 additional, in a perfect world based off of the PAM model, 24 additional sworn staff, non-sworn staff, and other staff needs. So I'm seeing 12, 2, and 7. Am I missing something?
That's correct. Yep. Then that 7 would be non-sworn staff. So that's talking about dispatchers, evidence personnel, records personnel, that type of.
But the number's 24.
But the number is 24.
One of the questions that David Bills and I asked last night in the Community Connection event was pretty point blank, because I appreciate point blank responses. Police needs funding, police needs help. Are you willing to see a tax increase on your assessment to fund police? And the answer was overwhelmingly yes. Obviously, it takes time for people to digest. We welcomed them to email us. It was only 14 individuals, mind you. I really would, if we're able, Mayor, at some point, to ask that direct question, if we're able to, separate from the community survey, a specific poll, because these numbers don't lie. We are shorted. We need 24 new employees for police to maintain quality police control. With that being said, would you be willing to increase taxes, because that's what we're weighing here and now, to do so? And I think the answer would be yes, and if we have that, I think we fund police, and I think we increase. And probably one of the more staunch on the dais saying, I'll never increase taxes. This is an issue.
Well, each year we increase it 3%.
3%, and we took the additional three ongoing, or one ongoing, three capital one time. I think the reality is, to get us to where we need, there's got to be a big jump. And if people are willing to face the music, maybe it's time that we do so.
Well, there really isn't a mechanism to do so, though. So our community survey clearly shows, it's been consistent, that for funding, police is the priority for funding, to adding funding, but we are only allowed to take 1% operationally. Only one, that's $400,000 approximately. We don't have a mechanism to take more than that. So really, I think we're limited to 400,000. What's important is that we take it consistently if we're going to impact this.
And that's more of what I'm alluding to. We have our
Yeah.
3%, the 1% foregone ongoing.
It's not going to meet this need, though. So we just recognize that, but if we're committed every year, we've gotten behind. If we commit ourselves every year to take 1% for police, as long as we're allowed to, and as long as we have it.
So, and I'll be more clear in what I'm saying. You have two council members currently that are very adamant, not supportive of foregone.
Yeah.
I would like some clear information. I'm not saying no, and I'm not saying yes. I would like information to say that the community is willing and ready for us to take foregone ongoing. I've got 3 more budget settings ahead of me. I very well could be taking that, despite what I have previously believed. If that's what the community wants, specifically and only for police, I will not be funding a development project or the drainage or utilities. It would be specific for police.
And we can do that dedicated, and that's what we've done. I don't remember off the top of my head, Doug, 400,000 equates to how much in taxes annually? It's very little.
440 was 1% last year.
But how much does that cost a citizen? How much does it cost a
My
citizen?
recollection, about 1% or 440,000 on an average citizen, I believe, might be $10 or $11 a year.
Okay.
Per average, per average taxable household. Like if you take the taxable, not the assessed value, but the taxable value of a home, and you apply the 400,000 to that, I believe last time I checked it was around $11 a year, but I'll verify that.
So you're averaging maybe $1 a month to add, and we could get 4 officers in with 440 plus adding a little bit. We could commit to 4 new officers every year with foregone.
And the more information, I think we see it with the EMS bond, we see it with the school bond, we saw it with the city bond. I think transparency and clearness of what it'll be $1 a month more. Are you in support of us taking foregone this year and in the future to fund our police? It might be expensive, and frankly, it's worth it to me to have that cost to gauge a wide variety, or at least a decent poll of the community. Is that the case?
Mayor?
Thank you. Yes,
So
Councilman.
Doug, maybe it's an off time that I come and meet with you, but I'd like an explanation, if I could. We keep talking about growth paying for growth, and when we're looking at people moving into the area, talk about the need as far as for more officers for geographic areas that are now being housing tracts or whatever it might be. Can I come and meet with you to get an explanation on how long it takes for those dollars to roll into our budgets from that standpoint?
Yes, we can, certainly, anytime. What I'd like to do is first get a little bit of background information with Canyon County so I can more effectively answer your questions, because if you approve a subdivision, that subdivision has a retail value of X, and that has a population of Y, what is that bring in terms of revenue to the city, and is the population, based on population, what would the cost be to the city? So I need to work on both those sets of information.
So that's the kind of
Essentially.
information that I'd like to have as we get into the budget cycle, so that.
But that essentially paused in about 4 years ago with House Bill 389. I will just say, because what House Bill 389 did was it limited our ability to have growth fund growth. So right now, we have $2.925 million that is not in our budget today that was new construction coming in, that's how you fund, the new construction funds the additional officers. It's not doing that today. That happened with that bill, and it pushed our levies so low that now our new construction, and every city's dealing with this, and it's a significant impact. So the model that used to be in place for growth to fund growth is not there today.
So I
And I'm
guess-
sorry, Councilman Bills had a question.
No, I appreciate your explanation and understanding. So what I would appreciate is the information Councilman Haverfield is seeking would be shared with everybody.
Yeah,
uh,
do that.
So that we get a clear picture of what's transpiring. And I think we need, if there's a way to chart or provide an easy means to see the 389 effect, I think that's needed. The final item is that the next two sessions, if those counselors in the next two public sessions would be willing to ask that same question that was asked last night about, to the citizens who show up there, are you willing to take an increase if it was dedicated to adding police staff?
Okay. And my point is, when we talk about growth paying for growth, if growth is no longer able to pay for growth, we need to stop using that mantra as something that the community keeps hearing from us, because now we're talking about current property owners paying for additional police services or growth areas that are not growth related with infrastructure improvements and those type of things. We just need to have a clear, transparent message that revenue is being exceeded by expenses.
Yep.
And that's a business model. So we need to know where we stand as far as with our revenue source and what we need to come up with from a standpoint to provide adequate protection and road improvements and all those things.
Yeah, it's comprehensive, not just police, but the police are the biggest contributor to that. So we'll work on getting more clarity on the information.
Again, it's just those two buckets, one of revenue that's coming in, or
Yeah.
maybe the same thing, revenue going out for the expenses that we have. And if they don't equalize each other, we have an issue to deal with.
Well, no, you can always force them to be equalized, right? You can artificially hold down costs to match the revenues coming in. That means if you do that, according to this model, the PAM model, you would eventually be, sooner rather than later, be facing a choice of what services do you not want to offer anymore, because you'd have to decrease the services to match the revenues you got coming in, right? So the question is can we, how much is it, what you're asking, how much will it cost us to balance that scale? Right? That's the information we need.
Well,
It
we
is
can't
an-
spend more money than we make. So
Right.
The
shouldn't
good
anyway.
news is, if I could just say real quickly, so with growth, when it comes to water, wastewater, right? And I'm not going to add streets in there because of that levy model is different. But we do then collect with every new household, when they hook up with their utilities, they start paying utilities. So they are covering, their own cost is being covered. This is very specific to GenGov, not our enterprise fund departments. It's very specific to GenGov. Transportation is impacted again by the legislature. The legislature, when they did the governor said 100 million, they did 400 million. Then they had to figure out where to find that, and they cut our transportation funding. So we're between $250,000 or $500,000 this next year in less transportation funding when we desperately need it. But these are the things happening at the legislative level that impact the city. So just for clarity for everybody listening, that our utilities are totally different, our enterprise funds are different. This is strictly related to GenGov, which is police, parks, and internal services.
Doug?
That's fine, as long
Yes,
as we can get
Councilman
that
Griffin.
explanation.
And this is going to be loaded and probably will need a reply back, but if you're able, I'd like a reply now. Where are we seeing, because of what has happened at the legislature, whether it be property tax cuts, 389, albeit, does growth no longer pay for growth in the city of Nampa?
Well, it isn't just the city of Nampa. I mean, just so you know, but
I
yes,
know
we're
it's
talking Nampa,
affecting
across the
everybody.
board.
I'm saying for us here and now, because I agree with Councilman Haverfield that it can't be our mantra anymore if it's not true, Doug.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's impacted because that was the goal of the legislature.
I'm absolutely not placing any blame on I fundamentally just want to know, as you all know, if I feel passionate about an issue, I want to go and address it at the legislature. Where are we not seeing growth, paying for growth, that we can make some noise to have it continue to do so?
It just flat isn't.
Yeah, no.
It just
it's
isn't.
not. It's not.
And it's
In any
police.
department.
Well, it isn't any department. 100% of our property tax revenue, with the exception of levies that are dedicated, library, highway district, I mean, the transportation funding, the cemetery, and some parks, that is a separate levy. So we get about $45 million every year in property taxes, about 36, this is round, 36 is what is in GenGov. 100% of that goes to police. The police budget's about 37.9. So the only place, I mean, 100% of property taxes from the city of Nampa goes to fund police. Then we take the rest out of our state shared sales tax revenue.
And it's going to become a greater portion of the sales tax, of the property tax impact.
Exactly.
Because sales tax is pretty stagnant right now, it's not growing. But our costs are. And so that means it has to come from property taxes, and every year, a little more we're going to take out of the bucket, of the other monies to fund the police until we get to a point. This is what the sheet I prepared, showed you about a month ago. We get down 2 to 5 years, we're short $2 to $3 million a year short, just by trending it out.
That was
So-
that model you showed us a few weeks ago.
Right.
That
Right.
we're on the wrong,
So
on a trajectory.
Because costs are growing faster than revenues.
Yes.
We'll get that document recopied and put in this book for everybody too.
Yeah.
We're adding to your book and we'll do it.
Appreciate
Yeah.
Mayor Clayton, hold on a second. So when the legislature gives us homeowners a tax break, that doesn't relieve the city of Nampa to lower our rates for services, correct?
Right.
So we're even down even more than what we were last year as far as.
Well, we're down
income.
because of 389, but any packages the state legislature does, they do it behind the scenes with the Canyon County. We still get the same, well, we're losing because of 389, but new proposals, where they're taking sales tax and divert to pay property taxes, that doesn't negatively impact us. But as a homeowner, if sales taxes do fall off,
We're stuck.
yeah.
Well, if you don't have funding for transportation, and that's what everybody's upset about.
Yeah.
But the state legislature is reducing our funding
That's what
for
I'm saying.
roads, and so that's very difficult. Councilman Griffin?
So just, is there any department where growth is paying for itself at
In-
this point?
The-
Any department?
The enterprise funds,
Yeah,
the
they do.
enterprise funds.
Water, wastewater, those places, they do.
Okay.
They have to.
And development services. Our development services are funded through the building department, right? New permits that come in. That's funding itself. So the area that's impacted is the general fund, which is the property tax.
But keep, Mayor and Council, keep in mind that while we talk about the use of property taxes for police, let's not forget we have two other significant uses of property taxes, primarily parks and recs. Right now, that is entirely funded through general gov monies, the Parks Department is. So they get money from property tax and they get money from sales tax. That all goes to them. So while we're focusing on the police, and it's very important to do so, we have a community that uses the parks. And I'll be honest, we're kind of strangling the Parks Department. We're not giving them any increases because public safety is the number one issue that we're concerned about. So there are those challenges we still need to be aware of, that even though you might want to do the foregone, and I support that for this purpose, we're still going to struggle to meet the rest of our needs that are funded by property taxes and revenues. That's always going to be the case. We're not going to panic about it. We just need to have the right information so you as council can make the best decisions you can with the information and the best use of property taxes and revenues. It's just.
So Councilman Bills has a question. I am going to say we have less than 15 minutes left, and I have a feeling you have more slides. So, but we'll let you go.
So, need clarification, if you would, when you put together your information, is 389, did it affect commercial industrial property or residential only?
Everything,
Everything?
everything. Any
So
new
we bring
construction.
on industrial, we've strived for years to get the industrial and the commercial properties developed and improved to help on that base, and so 389 hits that area as
Everything.
well.
Any new construction. Because, and it drove our levy down. It drove our levy down so low that now when those big projects come in, the percentage of revenue that comes from them is decreased significantly, plus 10% off the top we don't even get to take. So yes.
Mayor Kling,
Okay. And the,
just one comment. When you see these staffing needs, it shows what we need for today. But in reality, it gives the impression of one crime, one officer. That's not how it works. If you have a homicide, you have 7 to 10 to 20 officers. If you have a violent crime, you have 10 or however it takes to solve that crime. That takes from patrol, that takes from response times. So I just want you to clarify that we actually need more than what these numbers show.
So Councilman Rodriguez, I think the PAM model kind of does really illustrate that. As we look at the lower part of this chart, this is what we've more or less been doing over the last 10 years, averaging about 5 officers a year. So continuing along that trend, that would show if over the next 10 years we hired 50 officers, what our ratio would be to the population in terms of staffing not quite keeping up. And those population projections are based on what Rodney discussed with the council here a month or so ago. So, and just for clarification too, I think my math was a little wrong. The 12, 2, and 7, I'm getting 21 out of that. 12, 2, 14, and 7. So while you guys were talking, I had time to do some math in my head there.
I apologize. I
Okay.
have one last question on this, Mayor.
okay, we are not going to get done today, though, I tell you. And so we've, can it be
This will be my
one-on-one later?
very, very last one. Very last one, I promise.
Okay.
I'll move my mic. I know, I promise. Can you give us comparisons of other cities that are at 1.18 staffing, similar to Idaho, and the impacts of lack of staffing for police? It could be a later day. I don't know if it's possible.
Let's just get back to you with that. So let's look at that, and what we'll do is we'll make sure that it's in the packets, hard copies, and we'll email it. Okay, so
Mayor,
we're going to keep
if
moving
you're okay,
quickly.
Mayor, I will, there's a couple topics I want to make sure to cover.
Okay.
So I'm going to skip through the evidence needs, and I think I had a slide on the real-time crime center needs there too. But this leads into our conversation about Peregrine, which is a software that we are bringing, I've included into the FY26 budget. For our operations, currently the way I've built it, we're up about $205,000 in operations, and that includes $97,000 for a software called Peregrine. So this is an efficiency tool that we are longing for, that our analysts, investigators would really love to have, because it would reduce a lot of time that they spend on work. So the analysts would benefit from this. What this software does is it links different programs within the police department, different databases that we use together, so that we have to spend less time searching for things. So imagine if you're a detective, like Councilman Rodriguez was once upon a time.
The best one.
And you're sitting down to look at your case. You have a dashboard now that shows you the body cams associated with it, because that's one database, shows you all the reports associated with it in one database, all the 911 calls, CAD information, that's our computer-aided dispatch, related to that in that database. I don't have to search those now. They're all right there when I pull it up. It will also help us to run reports. We want to be able to better monitor response times and things of that nature. So this program will help us develop those types of ongoing reports that will self-generate more or less. And so we can run those reports more efficiently. There's a lot of other benefits. We're also looking at what it can do that other softwares that we currently use, we could replace with it. There are things that I think this would really benefit us in and delay the need for analysts down the road. In the near future, we could push some of those things further down the road and further focus on other priorities. So we had talked about bringing this to council here in the very near future to get funding authority for, because we can buy this at a prorated cost for this fiscal year and start implementing that immediately. So we are very interested in doing that, and I wanted to mention the aspects of that and the cost to it and the budgetary impact. It is an annual cost of $97,000 a year, but we do believe that essentially replaces a couple of analysts.
So that is one operational cost increase. It could come in before prorated, but what other increases do you have to your budget this next year?
So I'll go over a few of those. So in investigations, here are a few of what those are. So we have a $25,000 for a cellular tracking software that we have been using, and it was purchased through a grant, so that would be absorbed into the operational cost. So that is an increase for this next year.
So you're currently using it. It was funded through a grant, and the grant's rolling off.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And then there's some other increases there, $8,000 you'll see for DNA toward the bottom. We have been needing to send more stuff to the lab to get turnaround times more quickly. Our turnaround time when we send things to the state is about 3 months typically. Sometimes we can expedite stuff, but we're in the queue with other agencies when it goes to the state, so we've had to private lab some things. I could go through each of these if you would like me to for people online.
No, I tell you what, thank you for having them on here detailed out. Do you have another page of this? Okay, so I tell you what I think we'll do. Council has a link to this digitally. I would ask you to review it on all of these separate operational items. This is just a good FYI. This is what is going to be an increase in the operational budget. Council can ask directly. We will be scheduling meetings, you guys do every time, with the counselors to go over these things. So for sake of time today, you don't have to go through every single one. However, do you have anything you need to call out?
So there was one other, let me see. I have the capital in here as well, so if you want to review that.
I don't think we need to do
I did want to talk
capital
about
today.
the drone
Yeah.
right here. So I believe the chief has talked to at least some of you about the opportunity to purchase some drones. DFR is the acronym for that, Drone as a First Responder. So this is an aspect in law enforcement that's been exploding in terms of assisting with officer safety. So this is something that more and more agencies are doing to help keep their patrol officers safe. We have been using drone technology at our agency for at least a handful of years, and typically that's on specific deployments. So our tactical team, when they go out on a call out, if we have a major crash scene, our traffic team might use a drone to map that scene. There's a few different ways that we have been using that technology, but it's on a more limited scale than what we are looking at here. The DFR programs have a specific mission of aiding patrol in response to emergency calls for service. So the mission of that type of a program is to get a drone on scene before an officer can even arrive on scene, so that the operator in the real-time crime center who's viewing that video and flying that equipment can relay what is going on at that location as the officer is arriving or responding. It helps them to understand threats, it helps them to know what suspects are doing, it helps them to tactically prepare how to best approach and that type of a thing. So there's been some huge benefits to it in other agencies. They've had some pretty high success rates with getting drones there before officers get there. There's a software called Live 911 that that's about a $6,000 cost built into our budget that would allow our RTC folks to listen to the 911 call as it's coming in and be able to launch that drone even before it gets dispatched to an officer. So they can get a bit of a head time slightly, and that's what helps them to be able to get there. So this is, again, something that we have been looking at and wanting to implement as soon as possible. We've been talking to one of the vendors who supplies a drone that we already use. So this would be something that we would be looking at bringing forward as a request to publish for sole source, because we don't want to look at softwares and stuff that would be extra cost for us to purchase. So that is something I just wanted to put on the radar.
So question regarding that, I totally support the added benefit of it, but are you then going to be asking for positions specifically for that? You're going to be able to use your current positions to man that drone?
So
no new positions for that?
Yeah, so the model currently, as we're rolling it out, would be looking to, with Peregrine, we're looking at the potential that analysts can assist in the real-time crime center with staffing gaps to be able to cover that. We are, ideally you would have a couple of more full-time staff there, but we have been filling those gaps with light-duty officers on a fairly steady, unfortunately steady stream. So at this point, we would not be looking at additional staffing, and we would be evaluating how that's working in the
We need
years
to
to
remember
come.
that, especially down the road.
We can meet with you.
Yeah, so we need to, what I want to make sure that we understand is no new positions related to that, because that's important. The new positions, when we're hearing people say they want to support positions, they need to be boots on the streets, right? That's where we need our positions. So if we bring in something like this, we do not want to have to now hire a position in addition to, because you do have the cost, the capital cost for this, which is a capital discussion that we need to have, but then you've got the $60,000 a year just for the software, which is a significant cost for that software. It'd be nice if we could get that cost down.
So in some contract talks with the vendor that we're looking at, I put the approximate cost in there. That would be, we could build that over 3 different payments. They would ask that be front-loaded, so there would be a little more than 50% on the front end. But
it is a capital expense, so it's not coming out of your operational, so we can work with that. It's just looking at what the ongoing operational increase is. So we have a $60,000 per year for the software. I just want to make sure we don't come back and say, oh, we got to hire a new person to run it. Our priorities in funding have to be officers that are out working, not managing this.
correct.
Yes.
This doesn't replace your officers on the street.
Right, thank you.
So the coverage area is just the city limits of Nampa?
Correct.
Okay, so even though there might be an assistance to fire in the district, we're not sending drones out there as well?
Now, if they had a specific need, an emergent need, and we had the range for that, I wouldn't see us saying no, because we want to serve, for safety purposes, we would do what we need to do in the moment. But generally speaking, it would not be a partnership with fire to go and do things for them on a regular basis.
I can see if you were lead as far as into the impact area, as far as if there was an active shooter with a blowtorch, so you have fire behind you, but you'd be the active lead then.
On the calls that I could think of specifically for fire, there would be a law enforcement presence there. So I could say with a high level of certainty that if we were using a drone to assist fire, there would also already be a need for law enforcement on the ground to be there.
So we are at 9 o'clock. Is there anything else? Very quick. Animal control, we will put to a different day. Just for council's awareness, I have a meeting with West Valley Humane Society later this week. Eric, you're going to be in that meeting?
Yes.
I believe.
I am. Yes, ma'am.
I would like to ask if a council member would like to join that meeting. We do have a potential significant increase coming from that direction. And it's a challenge that we're facing in figuring out how to manage animal control in the city. So if there's a council member, I believe it's on Thursday. After this meeting, if someone has an interest.
Mayor,
So what else? Yes.
I was able to reach out to Steve Onfray and verify the actual cost of increasing the 1% foregone per 100,000. So he's responded back to me. A 1% increase for foregone for this year would be $478,000. The cost per 100,000 of taxable property value would be $2.84. So
42?
No.
$2.84 per $100,000 of taxable value. So if you have a $300,000 home, you're paying $9 a year. So I was pretty much close on the $11.
You were right on there,
Yeah.
Doug.
So, but that's the valuation.
Okay. So tomorrow at 3:30 is the meeting regarding the West Valley Humane Society. If a council member is free and would like to join that meeting, you would be welcome. Okay, thank you. Okay, what else do we need to, is there anything else? I know we didn't get through everything. So, Chief?
I think the last thing is just, as you have a chance to review the book, reach out to us, whatever works on your schedule. We'll make it work on our end for, one-on-ones to answer any questions and to go into more detail on stuff. But we'll make ourselves available 7 days a week. If it works for you guys, we'll make it work.
So just a general comment, the PAM model is based upon the number of people that we have living within the city limits.
Correct.
That's where the tax base is paying for that. The concern that I have is, we're basing our increases on population, but we're not allowing the population by virtue of the return in revenue to pay for, the additional services that we're seeing with the number of people that are, growing within our communities. So that's, I think, where the disconnect is. We've been talking about growth paying for growth, but it can't anymore. So that's where I need to have more clarity as far as on our revenue sources to be able to then adequately provide the funding that you need and everybody else within our other departments. So that's just more of a comment, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, so Eric, good. There's a lot of information in here. Really good job. Thank you so much. The discussion, this is a beginning, it's not the end. So a lot more discussion to take place. We will get a copy of Doug's document that he gave about a month ago maybe to council so they can have it in their books. And with that, I guess we do have a quorum because we have Dale on. So I would, we'll just say meeting adjourned.
So moved.
Thank you. So moved. If we haven't moved and seconded, it was Randy and Councilman Bills. Okay, thank you, guys.
So
Thank you. Yeah.
So if we had multi-million number of people that lived in the
on that dispatch issue, I think our approach of having that discussion needs to be from the standpoint of